First drive, 8 plays.
Dime.
Threw maybe enough passes. He thought, well, maybe Kyle Shanahan will sit him down. Came back for the second series and, dropped a gorgeous touchdown to Danny Gray, who then broke a tackle. I actually thought he was going to get pushed out of bounds.
Same.
And he sprinted for the touchdown. So what do we think of the way Trey Lance played? Ultimately, the final line, whatever that means to you, 4 or 5, 92 yards, a touchdown, no picks. And a successful day, I think, on a simple level. But we've been kind of drilling down on very specific things, watching him in practice. What's the good and the bad? What stands out first?
Yeah, I would say the good and the bad, if you're starting with the positives. Obviously, the Danny Gray play, right? And I just think that now they have run. I know everyone's like, oh, they're throwing deep for the first time. He was in the slot. They have run. Like, that's a Kyle Shanahan special, right? You're not sending the outside guys deep. You're kind of setting something up and the other guy's slipping out. Like, they have run versions of stuff like that. Now, it felt more explosive than Jimmy, but really, how far did the ball travel in the air? I'm not diminishing it. I mean, it's a good thing. Push the ball down the field, hit that pass. Your receiver beats him. That's a positive. But it's not, I don't consider that like a 50-yard bomb, how it kind of feels when you see 70-yard pass, right? It was a good start. And you got to hit him. Like, I thought when you saw Danny kind of open, you're like, oh, he better hit this guy.
Yeah.
Even if he had to kind of stop. And I wouldn't say he led him perfectly, but it definitely hit him where he didn't need to break stride. And 4.33 is the rest. To me, I at least, and you, I guess people haven't been able to go to practice. Like, I am confident he's going to be able to do that, right? 20, 30-yard kind of vertical routes. And then and they will attempt deep go routes. But to me, how about the slide on the run? We had talked about, like, is he going to dive head first? What's he going to do? He slid.
I gave that slide like a 7.3.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's not going to be Russell Wilson.
Okay.
If you slide, you can't hit him. I didn't know he knew how to slide. If he slides, he can't get touched. Like, to me, that was the most positive thing. If he's going to run and slide, that means he's not going to get tackled. A lot of runners, Lamar Jackson doesn't know how to slide. Michael Vick didn't know how to slide. That you take an extra 30% of hits as a runner. If he just slides, even if it's it was fine with me. Like, I don't need him to look like, Ricky Henderson. I guess Ricky slid head first too, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought his slide was, why do you give it a 7.3? He's big.
Yeah, it was a slide. I was happy he slid. I didn't think it was a great slide if I'm nitpicking slides, but it was a slide. It was a good slide. It was a slide. It was fun.
Did you think he knew how to slide? I mean, I was kind of shocked.
I mean, if you told me he didn't know how to slide, I'd fall out of my chair. But you're right, he hasn't done it yet.
But a lot of quarterbacks don't know how to slide, right?
34 air yards. Well, mobile quarterbacks, if you're big, you don't really have to do it that much, especially if you played high school and then at a lower level of college. 34 air yards on the throw to Danny Gray. I thought what was great about that slide was that the slide, his decision to run was like the last thing he wanted to do. He looked, felt his way in the pocket, looked again, had to get out of there, then got out. I love that. That was the second play of the game. I love that.
Didn't freak out much in the pocket, like when things were getting weird. He wasn't like looking as a runner. He wasn't like, one read, I got to take off. A lot of the bad throw, and I saw some people like, oh, there's Kaepernick on and out. Not many vibes there of like one read out, like he's kind of looking around. The one like where he almost got Tom Brady'd in his knee. You're like, oh my God, and he just gets up. Everyone's like, he's okay. When that happened, I thought, is he going to pull him right there? If you would have told me that Trey Lance ran out and Sudfeld ran off after that play, or ran on after that play, I'd have believed you.
If he had just called it off, if just abort, Shanahan, abort.
It's happened before, and it'll happen again. Not maybe with Kyle, but just coaches. Your heart, everyone's heart dropped on the sideline, I'm sure. Just the nature of that, when someone runs into your leg and you're kind of going forward. But that's back to what we're saying. He's staying behind the line of scrimmage.
Which is one of the things I love about him. Let me update. 42 air yards. I've calculated from the line of scrimmage, not from where he threw it from. I actually think, while you're right, it wasn't like the deep ball that we've been talking about. I think it's closer to the deep ball that we've been talking about than to the most of the.
I agree.
Garoppolo has made, because it's part of it is it's a sideline throw, not a middle of the field throw, and it feels like Garoppolo you didn't see that a lot. And so to see it in his first game of this season.
That's fair. Because slot, but he kind of worked up the sideline.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought it was much closer to what we've been wanting to see than what we actually have seen it pass from Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought that throw was somewhat representative of not just part of what I thought made it unique too was that he threw it to Danny Gray, who we've been talking about. At what added element does he bring? Whatever, but we can talk about him later. The other throw that I think probably really stood out was the 3rd and 9 throw that ended the first drive. That was incomplete to Danny Gray, where Danny Gray actually didn't. It looked like I thought live. He got both feet down. He didn't get either foot inbounds.
I thought it was one live, and you're right. It was
neither.
Nice catch though.
It was a nice catch. But what did you think? What did you think of that throw? I mean, that's probably closer to a throw that you'll see a lot than the 42 air yard throw to Danny Gray, the second one.
I guess what I was saying about the deep ball, I have confidence that he is going to be confident pushing the ball down the field. It's a strength of his because of his arm strength, because of the guys he has the ability to throw to, the talent around him. I guess not that I assume that because that's not fair, but like I'm confident that they're going to call deep shots and he's going to let it rip. You separate yourself and as a good team in general on 3rd and long and really 2nd and long now too, and balls at the sticks. And that to me is the question mark with this player, which one pass, like the most Aaron Rodgers has missed that pass. So people miss that pass, but that is something that we saw in training camp that then we saw right there. Now you could say there are some positives with that throw. He just misses high and long a lot. So it's not like he's missing behind him or it's hitting the DB or he doesn't have the arm strength. Like that's a sneaky longer throw than I think the average fan on their couch with the Titos thinks, right? Because it's usually the back hash, even though the hashes aren't as far in the NFL, but it's still, that's traveling 30 yard in the air, maybe farther, right? And you got to throw it on a rope. Like that's not an easy throw, but I do think it's fair to say is like the 10, anything 3rd and 7 to 3rd and 15-ish, like a deep pass is going to be where you're holding your breath with this player right now in terms of accuracy. Not that he can't get it there or the timing. Like he knew right where to go with it. And even Tim said he might have been a hair late, which again, he's 2nd-year player becoming a full first-time starter for the first, coming into training camp. He wasn't that way last year repping with these guys, even though Danny Gray wasn't on the team. But like that just kind of concerns me is just the consistency. And that's going to happen against good teams. And let's face it, the majority of NFL games, I remember Tom Coughlin said, like, this is a little while ago, but I bet it still rings pretty true. Like 80% of NFL games are within one score heading in the 4th quarter. And the NFL is not college football, right? And you don't really realize it until 5 Sundays go by and you realize most times at 12 o'clock as we're going into the 4th quarter in the morning window, like most games are not 30-7. I mean, a lot of them are just 20-13, even though it feels like, God, this fucking Packers are kicking their ass, but it's not actually. And then they end up winning 30-13. But
I bet your team, if you have a team that like your first, I bet your 1 seed. If we went and looked at the 1 seeds every year, just if we went back and looked 10 years of 1 seeds, I bet they play in more close games than your, maybe your 8 seed or the teams that just missed the playoffs, right?
For sure.
Like those teams that get blown out are playing in less close games. The teams that win play in a bunch of close games. Like you have to win close games. If I were going to give him some benefit of the doubt on that throw, I'd say, he's not Danny Gray. It's not Brandon Ayuk. It's not Deebo Samuel. It's not George Kittle. It's not Juwan Jennings did play, but that ball didn't go to him.
But that route is probably to Brandon Ayuk, and they are similar size, right? It's not like Brandon Ayuk is Julio Jones. He'd still have to leap up like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that. I don't know what would be different if you put a different player there. Maybe the route is run a little differently. Maybe he trusts earlier that Brandon Ayuk's going to do what he's supposed to do and throws it earlier. Maybe Ayuk somehow pulls that in with a little longer arms and drags both toes. I thought watching practice, and I said this last week, Danny Gray struggled in that get both feet down drill. Now, again, I'm not blaming him on that throw, but just something I think big picture, like my overall kind of takeaway after watching Trey Lance 2 drives was I just thought he looked comfortable. He looked like the guy I thought that we saw after that bad Sunday practice come back, hurry up offense, run offense and team, and just look in control. And part of it, I think it's clear, He said when you're not just doing drills and you're actually running real offense, you have an advantage in that Kyle Shanahan is calling. You have plays being called and plays off of another play that sets you up to do something. I wonder if they came back on the field for the second time, specifically with the idea of hitting Danny Gray on that. Now, maybe they didn't expect it to be 3rd and 9, but I got to think Kyle Shanahan had that in his mind.
I did think when he missed that pass, I was like, I bet he comes back out. Like you're not ending on that.
You wouldn't think, but you remember the play they ended practice on the other day?
It's a little different
like
practice when you have it set that you're leaving, and a game when you go, I'll give him one more series, because it's not like, well, I'm yanking Trent Williams, Juice, and Kittle on this. Like none of them started. Let's face it, Kyle didn't play anyone really except Trey Lance and the rotating interior guys, right? I mean, he started with Danny Gray, with Kraft, with Trey Sermon, with the Fresno State fullback. Okay. Like that's who Trey rolled with. So I had no concern about rolling him back in, even though he was close to whatever the quote unquote pitch count was. Like, fuck it. I mean, you could have argued, we'll get into what's his name later, the tore his ACL potentially. If you would have told me that Kyle got cold feet after that happened, now it would have sucked for me and you and fans that would have been, but I would have got it. Because a play like that sends chills around the league, right? Which, like, oh my God, do you see they might have just lost their starting quarterback? Like, that's something that goes like wildfire in the NFL. I wonder, honestly, if that impacted all the guys that didn't play, or maybe he was dead set on those guys not playing much after we were at practice on Wednesday. It was probably their most physical practice, definitely in like a week. So it's not, maybe Kyle in his mind was never going to play those guys once they got after it in practice beside Trey. But if you would have told me that either he got cold feet or he just decided not to, I couldn't totally blame him, because you see, that play where I don't even know the guy's name, some backup on the Packers, and no fault of his own, right? He's just kind of coming and he's low. He maybe trips. I didn't see how he kind of got low. I mean, that just jolted all of us. I mean, just because we see, and then you're already thinking there's already been a major injury at quarterback. I mean, it's August 12th.
I watched the Browns game. Somebody got carted off on the first series. I was watching that game. Offensive lineman.
Did you see the clip of Jalen Hurts running out of bounds and the guy hitting him? I mean, at minimum, 2 steps out of bounds. That's true. That's true. Well, was Robert the defensive coordinator for Kyle next year when D'Amico gets a head job?
D'Amico's got to get the head job first, but
yeah, I think his defense looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks good. One other note. Again, we had however many throws. So we'll do like we do in practice. We do a breakdown. We overemphasize each individual play. If we would have killed Jimmy I know if Jimmy Garoppolo threw that ball to Ross Dwelly way up above his fingertips that he caught, that we would have given Garoppolo a hard time for it. So just noted, that throw was noted. That was the second down and I don't know, like 12 after that first down Sermon loss on the first drive. So, but then earlier he had that very easy kind of Ray McLeod throw. That was just easy. I think one thing's clear with Trey is there are going to be easy 5-yard plays, because the rollout pass, him pulling the ball and running, there's going to be plays where you go, oh, that was just an easy 5 yards. Wow, that was not always.
Is that the play when Dwelly got destroyed because he's like this?
Yeah, he was elevated. It ended up picking up like 4 yards total. But
yeah, accuracy.
Whatever. It's yeah. We're just breaking down each throw.
He's got some parallels with Jimmy, right, in terms of inaccuracy. Jimmy was very good on third down. I do think that's just an area for concern. But I also think that Trey's going to be such an explosive player running just being able to pick up, even if you don't get 5 yard or first downs. What if it's 1st and 10 and you just pick up 7 and then you do your slide? Boom, it's 2nd and 3 where Jimmy might have got sacked or thrown it away, and the deep ball. So there is a balance out immediately, even if this first year accuracy is hit or miss on some big plays, because it's basically like being a 3-point shooter, right? He just hits some big plays and boom, you flip the game, you flip the field position, and 2 with his legs. Like I'm not okay with it, because every time it happens, you're like, oh my God, he's going to miss some must-have downs, right? 3rd and 9. Like he's just going to overthrow some guys. I also think it's much safer to do on the sidelines. Middle of the field, those balls get high, right? And this was a Jimmy problem. Safeties just hits them in their chest. You got to be careful. And this is where I think as you learn, and Kyle just has to acknowledge, like, this is kind of what we're dealing with now. You kind of call plays around that, right? Call more deep shots. The other thing is Jordan's been in the offense much longer. The way they run similar offenses, right? Moving the quarterback around with the boots and the waggles. How good is Trey going to be on some of those where you just kind of, where the handoff and then you turn around and you fucking waggle back and you boot back and some of those. Jordan actually hit a couple where it hit guys in hands and they dropped it. I'll be interested to see Trey kind of on the move on balls where he has to take a little off of it. Like where I'm moving, the guy's coming. I don't need to throw a heater. I need to throw like a light change up, which those plays are open in this offense because you're on the move a lot, right? And so, sometimes, when like your initial guy's taken away, but then the other guy's beaming across the field and you just throw, and he's hit some of those in practice when he stopped, right? And he'll kind of stop and gather. But sometimes in NFL games, you got, fucking Aaron Donald or someone chasing after you. So it's like, you stop, you're going to die. You got to keep moving and throw it. That's, I don't even know if it's a work in progress. We don't really know. It's hard to tell in these practices how that will look, but those plays are going to be there because in this offense, those guys naturally kind of go across the field, right?
Yeah, I mean, and he's going to create extra plays that other quarterback. He's going to create. There is more time for people to be running across the field. And Corey says difference is Jimmy's 31, Trey's 21. Lance has shown improvement already, where Jimmy never has in 8 years. Yeah, I mean, look,
we're not talking.
There is no comparison between the two. I know I compared on that throw, but there is no comparison. We're not doing that.
We're doing it in a vacuum, like last year to get to the playoffs, this year to get to the playoffs. We're not projecting. We're not talking about a 5-year projection plan. We're talking about 2022, trying to go 12-5, and a team loaded with stars, ready to kick the shit out of people. That's their mindset, and the quarterback now. He's ultimately in the driver's seat. Now, Kyle can get over there and kind of steer a little too, but it's their goal. This is not about it's about 24 and 25. I mean, ultimately it kind of is in 24 and 25. Right? It's 22 right now, and this team's, they have a Super Bowl roster. I'm pretty confident on that in terms of their depth, in terms of their talent all over the field. The only reason I wouldn't just put money on them to win the Super Bowl is they have a first year starting at quarterback. Young player who hasn't played that much in his life.
Yeah. I think if you looked at every team like a creative player on Madden and you got 100, right? And you gave them some on this and some on that. I think the Niners would end up in a group of teams with a lot of, in the 90s, because maybe you take a little away on rookie quarterback, but I think you'll have to add some on some of the other things he brings. And then you just start going down the list of other teams. Like, just look at all the questions you have with so many other teams who are Super Bowl contenders, and there's no question that they.
Let's just take what I would say based on last year. I know the Bengals beat the Chiefs, but let's just take the Rams and the Chiefs right now. The Niners subtract all 3 quarterbacks. Niners have a better roster they have the best roster minus the quarterback. Obviously, the other teams, the other two, are in a different universe at quarterback, especially the Chiefs. And even now with Stafford. I mean, Stafford's a guy that can throw 45 touchdowns now pretty easily. I think what the question is, would you rather have the much better roster and the question mark, a young, but hopefully ascending quarterback, or you just always take the quarterback and then figure it out?
No, but see, I like what you're asking is like a theoretical question. What I'm saying is just in the real world where the Chiefs exist and the Rams exist and the Niners exist and the Bucks exist, and you just go down the list of the teams that are supposed to be Super Bowl contenders. Yeah, you got Stafford and Mahomes here, but you might have this defense here. And you know what? Trey Lance might bring you something that the other team doesn't. And you got Kyle Shanahan who can go toe-to-toe. And you got Ayuk. And now they got Allen Robinson. And now they got, we could play that game. But I think your original point, which was they have a Super Bowl roster, I don't think there's any question that they have a Super Bowl. I agree with you. And I think, like I said, I think if you look at all 32 and you really look at all 32, you go, okay, yes, this is a Super Bowl roster. Is it the best roster? Well, we could debate that, but it's clearly they're a contender.
Well, that's why I think when we talk about Trey, and we're going to do this, however, every week now for months, on that given week, like we're talking about winning, not these next couple games, obviously, and not tonight. No one gives a shit about the score. No one remembers any preseason score except John Harbaugh, who might never lose another preseason game. 21 in a row. You see that? John Harbaugh, Ravens. They do not lose. But he is going to be evaluated short term. Like you just said, you watched some of Trevor Lawrence today. Trevor Lawrence this season, like it's just about progress and signs.
Yeah, he's got 3 years before anyone really cares.
Yeah, Trey is not living in that world. Honestly, the only other young quarterback in his class that, I mean, Zach's on the shelf now, would be Mac. Like Max, because the Patriots try to win and they try to go to the playoffs. And even this, but no one thinks the Patriots, honestly, but a lot of people don't think they're a Patriots playoff team, myself included. The Niners were talking about Super Bowl contender. So his games are just evaluated differently. That doesn't change the fact of like every positive thing is like, oh, the big picture, a lot to work with for sure. But they're also like Juice, Kittle, Fred, Trent, Ayuk, Debo, Kyle, potentially last year, D'Amico. Like you're in the present, this team. So there's a balance to it when we talk about this young quarterback that a lot of young quarterbacks that get drafted high, in fairness, don't really have to battle. It's like, God, did you see that game? Threw 2 touchdowns, also threw 3 picks, but who gives a shit? They lost by 20, right? He doesn't get to live in that world, which is good. I mean, that's the expectations. Like he's on a team that's sweet and a team that's good and a team that's going to win a lot.
Yeah, the things he does, they're going to really matter.
They're going to matter a lot.
Yeah, and some of them will be good and some of them will be bad, and you hope there's more good than bad, and I think
that's why I like
good reason.
I think about this a lot. The likelihood of winning a Super Bowl with a guy in his position is slim to none. No matter.
It's never happened.
Yeah,
rookie quarterbacks never won a championship, right? Wasn't that the story the other day?
Probably, but he's technically not a rookie, right?
Oh yeah. What am I thinking? Russell. Never mind.
Yeah, so, but like I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust for them. But you also get back like how many opportunities we talked about this a long time with the Jim Harbaugh team. Things change fast in the NFL. That like you have this little window. Like ultimately, the Chiefs might have had their best chance to win a Super Bowl for the next 5 years, the last 4 years, and they got to 2. They went to 4 AFC championships. Obviously, the Niners would sign up for that little run, but like you get your opportunity. The opportunity's kind of now, so you got to get there. Like that's the other thing. It's definitely playoffs or a disaster.
Yeah.
Now we've talked about they lost some interdivisional. They went 2-4 in their division. They still got the 10 games. Like they should be able to do that, but the schedule's hard and just gets back to that one throw that he missed. Like those throws against the Broncos, against the Chargers, against the Rams, against the Cardinals, against all the good teams they play, against the Raiders, against the Chiefs. Like those are the throws that matter.